everybody, and welcome to another episode of Getting Hammered. I am Mary Katharine Ham, your host. I'm here with my co-host, Vic Mattis of the Washington Free Beacon. We are your morning show for any hour where there's a lot of news going on, as usual. We got India, Pakistan. We got a possible trade deal with the British. Trump meets with the new Prime Minister of Canada. Biden sits down with the BBC and The View, which we will not have clips of, sadly, because it's happening as we speak, but we will go over it later, as I'm sure it will be a masterpiece in daytime TV, and judicial nominations from Trump. But before we get to all of that, Vic, how you doing?
Hello, Mary Catherine. I'm doing fine. A little heartburny. It was a very difficult yesterday for me because I had a lunch and dinner appointment, two separate appointments.
A true hardship for Vic.
It was really hard because I had a whole plan. I said, I'm having dinner with my old college buddy, Peter Lowe. And I said, well, that's going to be, we're going to tie one on. So I got to brace myself. And so, lunch was with two contributors. One was visiting from out of town. I said, I'm going to, pretty serious people. So I said, it's going to be a fine working lunch.
Right.
And my plan is iced tea and a salad.
Okay.
Or like a steak salad.
That's
something
very
like
sensible
that.
of you. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I had a martini. And they had a special on the menu.
Well, to be fair, martini has the word tea in it.
It does. It's true.
You can't spell martini without T.
And then I. And they had a special that I had never heard before, which was at this place. Well, it was the Palm. Fine.
Okay.
And it was like a Wagyu burger.
Yeah, you thought you were going to go to the Palm and get
I was going to get a steak salad and iced tea, which, I did that once before. I would think it was in 2017 that I had a non-alcoholic beverage at the Palm. And they had a big burger special. It was like a burger month or something. So I got to try that. But I really wasn't planning on drinking. And the two contributors, I said, well, if you're not, then I won't. Because there's nothing I hate more than being the only person at a table
he definitely
drinking.
hates that,
I think there's like some etiquette rule about it. It's just weird. I'd rather not. And I've been in that position. So anyway, my friend says, actually, I got nothing else going today.
Nice.
I got to just catch a plane. I said, oh, here we go. Fine, in solidarity. But I can't drink beer because I said, I'm just going to have a beer. As you know, with my gout condition, I can't do that.
Possible
so
for you.
That was my situation. It was a little tricky. And then at night, I had Indian, and it was delicious at the Bombay Club. I had railway curry, lamb curry. It was quite nice. It made me sweat a little bit.
Okay.
And then after that, we had like one more drink after that. And then the whole night, I woke up at between like midnight and 1 or 2. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I just wasn't sure. It's not comfortable. I'll put it to you that way. It's not comfortable. And when you get to that point where, it's often nice to cuddle with your loved one. I'm like, don't touch. No contact.
Nope.
I need my space because I need to figure out.
I'm processing. That's
I'm processing. Or as a colleague of mine's husband would say, get the meat sweats.
Yes.
The meat sweats.
That's the thing that happens.
Everything was fine.
You've survived. Well, I'm so glad to hear that. You at the Palm without an alcoholic drink is like Barney at Moe's with eating celery.
Right. It's
just the celery from the wings plate.
That's right. Right.
I'm sure that'll happen.
It's just unusual. But I was ready for that. So we start again. But the great thing is every day is a new day. You just
True.
And so I'm a little bit.
As we know, the effects of the day before do not carry over. Yeah,
not at all.
It's a clean slate
not
health-wise.
At all. People are like, wow, he's so less animated today. And but I'd like to say I'm more contemplative.
Yes.
Like the Cardinals at the Conclave, which we'll get to later on.
Yes, we do have to talk about that.
Mary
I forgot
Catherine,
to mention
more
that,
importantly, how are you?
I am pretty good. Yesterday, I feel like we had a little bit of a rite of passage at our house.
Ooh.
So I have, as you guys know, 11 and a 9-year-old and then a 3 and 2-year-old. So some friends with younger kids / in the middle of these two groups of my own children suggested a play date at a park yesterday after the girls got out of school. And I said, great. And the girls said great because they knew that other people were coming, right? I didn't know that was the whole draw until the play date ended up being canceled because one friend got a migraine and so she had to stay home. So we're just like, we'll postpone until next week. Let's not make you drag 3 children out of the home with a migraine. So we canceled the play date. And I've just picked up the big girls from school, and I have all 4 kids in the car, and I'm like, well, let's just go to the park. And they're like,
Wow.
and I was like, oh, you guys don't want to go to the park? And they're like, well, if the play date's off, we could just go play with our friends.
Yes.
And then here's the best part. Because I was like clearly a little bummed out, because I had rounded up all 4 to take them on a little tiny adventure.
Yeah.
But I respect that they have different interests
But you're
than
saying
a 3 and 2-year-old.
I was going to say the youngest were probably all game to go.
Oh, of course.
You're
They're
talking
like,
about
park,
you're
go
talking
park.
you're talking about your older.
Yes. The older 2
Yeah.
are like, so no one else is coming?
That's right. It's more of a
I was
social thing. Now.
Oh, you don't want to go down the slide with your old mom on Mother's Day week? So anyway.
Were you yourself going to go down a slide?
I mean, I definitely go down a slide occasionally. I was a little bummed out because I had everybody loaded up and I was excited about our little adventure. And I had arranged my day so that I could do that. But I respect that they have different interests than a 3 and a 2-year-old. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just drop you guys off at the house and you can go play with your friends. And my very frank oldest daughter jumps out of the car and she's like, sorry if we hurt your feelings, Mom, by not wanting to go to the park, as they run off into the neighborhood.
And you were left there with a tear.
A single tear.
Yeah, a single tear. Mary Catherine, this is something that I've said and Kate has said we've noticed before, which is for listeners with little kids right now, and sometimes it's a real pain. You got to take them to places to do these things.
Always to the park. So many parks.
A lot of parks.
Yeah.
One day you will leave the park and you will not realize that is the last time you're going to the park.
Yeah.
It's true. And you don't know what it's going to be. Sometimes you're like, I guess it's time, whatever. It was okay. They did. They just had a so-so. Yes, thank you. That's right. Like we're back on the shtetl. And it's the same thing with carrying your kids.
Yes.
I mean, you still have a ways to go, but, at some point, that ain't happening.
There is a point where it just fades and you don't, they're around
So enjoy it.
5 or 6 and you stop, lifting them up because it's just not necessary anymore.
That's right.
Luckily, I had the 2 parakeets or 2 parrots in the back of the car like, park? Go park? Park, mama.
They're like the birds in Finding Nemo,
So I yelled,
Mate?
I yelled out into the neighborhood, it's fine, I have these replacement children. Enjoy yourselves.
They're perfectly aged with each other in pairs, so you get through one, and then you have another wave.
Yeah. So when these girls, reject and hate me, I will have these guys who like me still. Yeah.
And by then
Happy
you'll have
Mother's Day to me.
And by the time that those kids get old, you'll probably have another batch. So
just
keep it coming, and then you can convert.
Oh my goodness. Right. So anyway, they did have a lovely time. We spent some quality time together later in the day. It's all good.
I'm sure.
They're spreading their wings. This is what we've trained them for, They become independent.
Wait till you get to high school is like lightning speed, and I imagine that college will go just even faster. But
it is crazy to think your own high school experience feels so long and formative. And the distance between freshman year and senior year is huge. And it's 4 years long.
Yeah, blink of an eye.
Blink of an eye. One of the things that's nice when we go back to my hometown is that we play in the same park with these kids as I played in as a kid. And so my parents get to go back to the park with the babies.
Well, but that's what you aim for. You hope for as a parent who aspires to become a grandparent at some point. Hopefully not soon. But you never know. And then relive that again
on a responsible timeline.
Yes. And you relive that with only the fun parts.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's good times. Okay. Shall we talk about the news?
Let's do it.
A couple quick notes at the beginning of the show because we don't have to get into the huge details about it. But I did want to note that President Trump has begun his judicial nominations. Mm-hmm. A little slow off the blocks. On only this thing in the first 100 days. During his first term, he and Mitch McConnell together set a record for getting judges confirmed, which I very much appreciated.
Yes.
That is one of the things that
Good judges too.
Am happy to admit I was wrong about the first Trump administration because I did not anticipate him actually listening to people who knew who the good judges were and promoting off of those lists. I was afraid he'd come out of left field with whatever he wanted to do. So I very much appreciate that. Axios reports Trump 2.0 is having a slower start, though there are only 46 judicial vacancies to fill compared to more than 100 at the start of his first term. Trump made the first judicial nomination of his second term last week, naming Whitney Hermendorfer as his pick. The lawyer served under Tennessee's Republican Attorney General. She's getting rave reviews from the Leonard Leo sort of Federalist
Federalist
crowd.
Society. That's good.
And that's how I go. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, that's right. She actually, I think Scrimetti called her like the most qualified lawyer in the country or judge. She had clerked for 1/3 of the Supreme Court.
Jeez.
So, I mean, there was this fear that in a Trump second term, he's just going to get these loyalists who are just going to do whatever he wants them to do and bend the rules and bend the laws and not the Federalist Society crowd. She's decidedly Federalist Society type. And that's what you want because ultimately in the end, even when you pick, who you believe are philosophically conservative judges, you want somebody who's going to want to be fair and, make rulings down the middle.
Has an actual judicial philosophy.
Right. I mean, and we talked about this in the past with the Supreme Court. The left has this narrative, this trope of, 6'3" conservatives, we must stop this somehow, pack it or do this, force retirements. When in fact, there's only a handful of rulings that have been 6'3" the way they think of it. And the rest of those cases are a mishmash.
The crossover from quote-unquote conservative justices to side with the more liberal justices, they cross-pollinate that direction far more often than the other. A Kagan will occasionally join.
Right.
Or if there's a 9-0 or a 7-2,
Sure.
But yeah, and now some people will fault the Bush nominated, nope. He was Bush nominated, I guess Roberts was. But the Trump nominated justices, they'll fault them for that. But I don't fault them for that because they have an actual judicial philosophy following and that they adhere to.
But we're talking about Gorsuch and ACB, Amy Coney Barrett, and Brett Kavanaugh. You see them sometimes siding with the liberals, and they never get any kudos or props from the press whenever those decisions come out.
No, sir. He also announced a series. He announced a series of nominations Tuesday for judges to serve on the U.S. District Court in Missouri, including Zachary Bluestone, Joshua Devine, and Maria Linehan. I will leave it to others to do the reviews of those guys. But in general, Trump very solid on judges and remains so. So I'm glad to get this ball rolling as we start.
And do you remember during the Biden years, he would have these judges who were very progressive in their philosophy, and they'd have to go through confirmation in the Judiciary Committee, and they would get grilled by Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana. And it would be basic questions,
Yes.
Tell us about the fourth, Article 4 of the Constitution. That's mine.
You should memorize those before you go.
And they'd be blank.
Congress.
And they'd be like, it's not coming to mind right now. That's not good.
No. List all the amendments. You should have those.
Yeah.
You should have those down. Okay. Another quick bit of news.
Yes.
Another ball that's rolling.
Yes.
The Trump administration is announcing today a trade deal with Britain.
Very exciting.
So that's exciting.
The stock market, it's reflecting that right now. So sell.
This is New York Times reporting. We'll have more details on this later in the week, obviously, but he's expected to announce on Thursday that the United States will strike a comprehensive trade agreement with Britain. Hours after teasing that an agreement would soon be announced, Mr. Trump said in a social media post that a deal had been reached that would cement the relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom for many years to come. Quote, because of our longtime history and allegiance together, it is a great honor to have the United Kingdom as our first announcement, he wrote. Many other deals which are in serious stages of negotiation to follow. He will be doing that in the Oval Office.
That's an easier one to pull off than the European Union because you're just dealing with the one country. Also, again, as we've pointed out, the United States has a trade surplus with Great Britain. They buy more of our products than we buy more of their products. What products do you think we buy of theirs?
From Britain? I don't know. Not food.
Cadbury. But that's really a small part. No, we do buy, the country buys larger things, not your average consumer per se, but things like Rolls-Royce engines and things like that. So on the bigger thing for planes, parts, a lot of parts. But for the average consumer.
Yeah, this is not a...
No, they love our stuff.
Yeah, this is not a banger and mash. Okay.
How about a toad in the hole?
Yes. We don't
know.
know...
Spotted... Okay, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, stop right there.
All right.
That's for later in the podcast. Okay.
getting hammered after
we don't know the
hours.
details, but they have discussed lowering British tariffs on U.S. cars and farm goods,
yes.
as well as removing British taxes on U.S. technology companies. It also was not clear whether the agreement had actually been finalized. We assume by the end of the day that will be much clearer. So anyway, that's what we know. Again, one down, 159 to go.
That's, okay, so not necessarily the 200 deals in 200 days.
Yes.
But that's progress.
Hey, look, as the market shows, and this is one of my issues with this, like, this is self-inflicted. The market issues.
Oh, sure.
Now, some will argue that they have bounced back in places and will bounce back to where they were, but you lose productivity and you lose investment during those periods of time because people go, I don't know what the rules of the road are.
Periods of uncertainty where people are either going to buy up as many imports as possible or they stop buying altogether.
Yes. So the quicker we can get the rules of the road established, since we just, I'm mixing metaphors, but threw the deck in the air, it's 52 card pickup here. Trying to figure out where everybody is, the sooner you can get pen to paper on these things, the better for the market and for the economy.
Right.
And, lowering trade barriers is where I'd love to be, as opposed to resolving trade deficits, which I don't think is the problem.
Right. It's very clear that market does well when he announces a temporary suspension of tariffs. Not, we're slapping on these tariffs right now and then the market goes up. No, that's not really quite what happened. He declared that there'd be a 90-day, pause, and then things do better as they work things out. Now, obviously, he can make the argument now that we have a better deal than we had before, which okay. And they
Besant is the best at making this argument, and he's written in the Wall Street Journal about
very
it.
Good.
And I still think that much of it is pretty misguided.
So at the ceremony today, Trump was there surrounded by his people in the Oval Office, and he wanted Keir Starmer to talk. And so he had him on speakerphone. Who does speakerphone anymore? That's what I want to know.
Actually, that's the new trend story, is that people are really ticked off because people use speakerphone on their phones too much in public.
Right. Well, I mean, if you're doing a meeting,
actually,
fine, but some people do it when they're busy. Like, I'm just moving around the house, so go ahead and talk to me.
Oh, yeah.
I can't do it.
Oh, I do it when I'm doing laundry and stuff occasionally. 'Cause I don't need that crick in my neck,
The kids make
Call
fun.
me Trump. I'm putting everyone on speakerphone.
The kids
Not in
make
public, though.
the kids make fun of me because if there's a speakerphone situation or like you're in the car, that's a speaker. Okay, fine. You're in the car. I need to talk to somebody, my dad or whatever, in the car, and they laugh because they said my volume is so high. It's they call it Dad's McDonald's voice.
Yes.
I'll have a Big Mac. And I mean, but I feel like they don't hear me.
Yeah, we used to do that perilous game with my mother because my mother had the sweetest phone voice. As soon as she picks up that phone, doesn't matter how mad she was at you 3 seconds before that, she picks up that phone. She's like,
all right.
And we would be like dum-dums. My brothers and I would stand in front of her like, ooh, you gonna be mad now? You can't be mad. You're on the phone. You're a nice Southern lady. What you gonna do? And she's like, oh, we'll get you after this.
But she's able to do that. No.
She's a teacher, man. She's got that down.
It's a great thing to watch. I remember this with my mother as well. In a bad mood, and then hello.
Put that mask right on.
Wow, that's so good. And you're like, please stay on the phone longer.
Yes, exactly. Like, please continue to talk.
Please be nice.
I do the speakerphone in the car, and I talk to my friends so much that, then my kids know my friends, and so they're like, say hi to Kelly. Hi, Kelly. How's it going? And then I don't end up having a conversation at all. So
yes.
Anyway, so did Keir Starmer. He spoke up.
He spoke for a while. Yes.
Good. Okay. Well.
And then they just have to sit there like this. Because it's like, again, it's really awkward it's not great for optics per se. Because
it is also just another instance of Trump being radically transparent in this bizarre way, where you have another head of state who has just negotiated a trade deal with you, and instead of having it like, here's the page with the bullet points on the things that we have agreed upon, it just calls everybody in the Oval Office, puts Keir on speakerphone, and is like, all right, tell him what you got, Keir.
Yeah,
Let's
that
go.
was it.
Speaking of being in the Oval Office, hanging out with people, he also hung out with Carney this week.
Oh, yes, the big meeting.
PM of Canada.
Yeah.
How did that go?
So this is interesting because for a while, like 4 or 5 months ago, we would have pictured Trump meeting with his conservative counterpart, Pierre Poilievre,
Yes.
since their
Sadly,
party
no.
was up by more than 20 points.
Yeah.
And then Trump took office and said, I'd really like Canada to be the 51st state, and the prime minister can be the governor. And everyone said, ha ha, that's a funny joke. He's still telling the joke. It's not a joke.
I think had he told the joke one time
Yeah.
with Trudeau down at Mar-a-Lago
Yeah, which he did.
and then cut it off, I think you'd be okay. But I don't think it's a joke.
Okay.
I don't think it's a joke is the problem. And the Canadian people, quite understandably, were like, you don't get to annex our country.
Right. And so they push back. The Liberals have a miraculous comeback. Mark Carney shows up to meet with the president the other day. And it's a very friendly meeting. A lot of handshaking and smiles. And he, of course, when Trump introduced Carney, he said that, he had this amazing comeback, almost as amazing as mine. And as you know, what Trump likes are winners, and this guy is a winner.
Yep.
And that's why he's there. And he said, we're going to, get along great. Everything was going great. The 51st state thing came up again, and Trump did not back down. And what you picture is Trump at times during the day standing over one of those ginormous globes, like the one from Close Encounters that they roll down the hall, right? It's massive. And he's looking at the United States and Canada and imagining how big America would be.
Yeah, no,
and that would be really cool, which is, I thought the same thing when I was 14.
Yeah, he was talking to Meet the Press, and he's like, I mean, imagine if we just took out this line that was like arbitrarily drawn in such and such year, just straight across. If we just took that out, like, no.
Yeah.
I don't want to take that out.
You had your moment in 1814, 1812, and you blew it. We blew it. Didn't happen. But he insisted on it, and Carney said, well, it's like, I think he said it was like Buckingham Palace. There's some things are not for sale, and we will never, be for sale. And Trump said, never say never.
That is, by the way, one of Trump's go-tos.
Is never say never?
I listened to his whole thing is that he doesn't preclude the possibility that something could happen. And often that thing, like running for a third term, is totally patently unconstitutional, right?
Yeah.
But he'll be like, I I can't say that it couldn't happen. And, there's infinite possibilities in the world, right? And what he's saying is that's not going to happen. But he has to...
a little bit.
The number of times he did it in that Meet the Press interview, which was over an hour long with Kristen Welker, the number of times he just was like, well, I can't totally rule it out. Like, can I totally rule out taking military action to take Greenland? No, I can't totally rule it out.
The way
it's very unlikely.
So two things. One is the way he phrased whether or not he's going to run again was that, no, I only planned on serving for 2 terms, making it sound like, I have the possibility of a third or a fourth, but I'm choosing to only serve 2 terms. And then he propped up first Rubio, interestingly, and then Vance. And then
that was interesting.
It was very interesting.
The primary position of Marco Rubio, now the inhabitant of 4 jobs within the administration.
Yeah, I mean, by next month, he may be having several jobs, including vice president. We don't know. It's possible. And the other thing is, you mentioned Greenland. And apparently we've been upping our spying and intel on Greenland. And the Greenlanders are now so put off by the Trump hard sell that they're like, the country's now getting closer with Denmark again.
Well, no, I do think this is the price of doing business this way. Yeah. Is that if you're not reading the room, if you're not aware that politics happens in other countries in addition to your own, right? This is not just like, oh, America is very strong. It is a dominant force. There are other forces at work, including among Canadians themselves, as we saw, including among the people who live in Greenland. It's like if you were trying to sell me a timeshare and I was like kind of inclined to do it, but then you got like real weirdly aggressive about it, I'd be like, maybe that's all timeshares actually, being super weirdly aggressive. But the point being, you're selling me a product I might want. You get weird on me, and I go, I'm out of here. This couch is not worth it, right?
If only if only those deals were like timeshares where you're locked in forever.
Really are.
It's extremely
Do you know
painful
that
to
there are
extricate yourself from.
There are entire other businesses designed
Yes.
to get you out of
Yes.
the timeshare.
Yeah.
So you end up paying for the timeshare plus the business that's working to get you out of the timeshare.
Right. I mean,
Yowza.
my late aunt, she had a timeshare in Aruba, and when she passed, that went to my sister, and I said, "All yours. Enjoy."
See, what we
But
do,
I mean, she's using it. I mean, she uses it, or people go to her. I mean, she's not trying to unload it. So
what we do is we take advantage of other people being stuck in
Yeah.
timeshares,
Yeah, yeah.
and we rent
Yeah.
their
How much?
timeshares
Yeah.
when they don't want to use
yeah,
them.
no, it works out. And I mean, but okay, that's fine.
Yay for the
okay.
market. Okay.
Oh, a good friend of ours, by the
Anyway,
way.
this all relates to
Yeah, I don't
Trump
know how.
meeting with Carney in the Oval Office. I'm quite sure.
You know
Go
how
ahead.
there's like they always say there's no such thing as a free lunch or whatever. This is particularly true with timeshares, right?
Yeah.
Where you go on a vacation somewhere
Oh my gosh,
and they
yes.
offer you a free something.
Yeah.
And you know it's not free because they're going to give you the
That
hard
blender
sell.
ain't free.
Yeah, I'm going to share the story and take a chance that our friend is fine with me sharing it, which is our good friend John McCormick.
Mm-hmm.
I believe when he and his lovely wife were in, it might have been Hawaii,
Right.
decided to do a free helicopter ride.
Yeah. Watch out for
He
that.
said that was awkward.
Yeah, that's none of it's free.
Yeah.
You're gonna
No,
get
you
you're
gotta
gonna
do
get the
something.
pitch.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I admire people who can be salespeople because I absolutely could not do it.
Yeah.
It is impressive.
Yeah.
But
It's
as it turns out, Greenland and Canada not responding to this particular kind of sales.
no, it's kind of like the car salesman who says, "Oh, I can drop those papers right now. You can take the car right off the lot."
Sir.
So let me just do that right now. You just have to sign.
No thanks.
Okay.
No thanks.
Okay, good. I'll
Here's
get
a
it
little
ready for
bit of Carney and Trump in the Oval Office.
Well, if respectfully, Canadians' view on this is not going to change on the 51st state. Secondly, we are the largest client of the United States in the totality of all the goods. So we are the largest client of the United States. We have a tremendous auto sector between the two of us, and the changes that made have been helpful. 50% of a car that comes from Canada is American. That's not like anywhere else in the world. And to your question about is there one thing? No, this is a bigger discussion. There are much bigger forces involved, and this will take some time and some discussions, and that's why we're here, to have those discussions, and that is represented by who's sitting around the table.
Who was sitting around, by the way, was Vance. Rubio was there.
Yes.
Look, he's playing this correctly because he could
Carney.
Carney.
Yeah.
He could roll up in the Oval Office and start really hammering and
Right.
doing, trying to have a blow up.
A Love Actually moment.
Right. Yes, exactly.
So annoying. So
You, sir, are no Hugh Grant.
Yeah.
So he could do that, and his voters would respond to that. He's got a bunch
yeah,
of
sure.
the polling shows it was like the boomer left in Canada.
Yeah.
Was like, we love this guy. He needs to speak truth to power.
Right.
We got to send in there. Younger people were more concerned with cost of living and the things that Pierre Poilievre was dealing with.
Yeah.
But they wanted a guy who was going to tell off America. They wanted their Love Actually moment. And this guy could have done that, but he's being very gentle.
Yeah.
I noticed the use of the word tremendous. Do you think that was that's a nod to Trumpisms? Like
Well-
he's kind of adopting a little bit. He's saying, look, we work well together.
And they've known each other in the past, right? I mean, Carney worked at Goldman Sachs before Bank of
Oh,
Canada. There are people who say that
Yet another limousine liberal.
Yeah, no, there are people.
Hedge funds
definitely.
lib.
Oh, yeah. But there are people who are saying that Trump secretly really did want Carney to win, and that's why he's doing this ridiculous thing. That's a conspiracy theory I'm pointing out. How do you feel about this? Did he want him?
I don't think he thinks that far ahead, but as soon as whoever it is wins, he'll find common ground with that person unless he actively despises him. This guy is being smart at not sort of really super undermining him. But yeah, I don't know. This is the thing about Trump is that liberals and Democrats should have normalized him from day one in 2017, and they just would have had like a pretty democratic president.
Yeah, because he could be sweet. He could be sweet talked.
Oh yeah. You can see him when in real time talking to Carney. He's like, "Huh, interesting.
Yeah.
You make a good point about the cars. Like
Yeah.
he's listening."
Yeah.
Anyway, Okay, so that's those two. Quickly, do you understand India-Pakistan? Go.
Okay. This has been
I've really done my homework on this.
This is
one, guys.
okay. All right. How much
No.
time? Here we go. Yes.
I can.
Yes,
I can.
give you-
I'll set
you
you.
go.
I'll
Set
set
me
you
up.
up
Set
with
me up,
the
and I'll-
with the
and I'll
New
give
York
you my
Times
take.
synopsis. The situation between India and Pakistan remained volatile on Thursday, with reports of heavy overnight shelling and strikes on both sides, clouding an international diplomatic push to contain the risk of all-out war. After a day of violence on Wednesday that opened with Indian airstrikes and Pakistani claims to have shot down aircraft and reports of dozens of deaths in total, both India and Pakistan seemed to be open to finding a way to de-escalate, even as leaders on both sides publicly struck victorious tones. Pakistani officials said that security officials from both countries had made initial contact to reopen communication. President Donald Trump expressed his willingness to help too, as U.S. officials said they were engaging with leadership of both Pakistan and India to seek a peaceful resolution. I believe this most recent dust-up, of which there are many over the years, and there's like simmering tensions at all times, I believe started with this terrible terrorist attack in Kashmir region.
Yes.
At a camp, it looked like. Was that where that happened?
I know tourists being murdered in front of their families.
Yes, it was
awful,
brutal.
Yeah.
There's a very disturbing viral video of a guy doing the zip line at this facility.
Oh my gosh.
He's just doing a selfie video, and he's
Yeah.
100 feet above a crowd. He doesn't know why people are screaming. He's excited about being on the zip line, and you can hear, if you know what's happening, you can hear what's happening on the ground, and it's a lot. So that attack on civilians then sort of sparked this.
Right, that there has to be some sort of a retaliation because Pakistan is somehow, the Indians believe, complicit in this and allowing the terrorism to happen.
Right.
It's been a disputed territory for a very long time. Obviously, it was all part of the British Empire. They got split up because of their religions and such. The first thought was it surprised me that many people want to go visit Kashmir who are not from Kashmir.
Right.
Because that's not knowing its history and the dangers. I'm like, that's really not on the top of my list unless I'm going with Robert Plant and Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
Just thank you. Thank you, Phil. Getting the Led Zeppelin joke.
I was going to say
song.
it, and you did it better.
Yeah.
Good
okay.
job.
I mean, when we hear it, come on. For certain people of a certain generation, what do you think of first, the song? Which, by the way, is great right after Robert Plant trails off in this sort of agony moan, which is quite beautiful in its own weird Led Zeppelin way. And then you could stop it because it goes on for another, I think, 5 minutes of
Naturally.
just dun-dun-dun. Okay.
By the way, that original attack killed 26 civilians on April 22nd.
So India had to reply, by the way. And they seem to be now saying that both sides are claiming, and I would say this is like a skirmish, but both sides are claiming that victory, like, oh, you hit us, we hit him back. Okay, we can stop now. Maybe. We obviously know that India did launch airstrikes successfully. Pakistan, and there are eyewitnesses in these villages who are claiming that they did see jets going down.
Right.
I think Pakistan says they've killed 40 to 50 Indian soldiers and that there are countless civilians who were killed, as they would. From a tactical point of view, it's kind of this, just from militarily speaking, it is interesting to see a conventional war play out like this. I know it's scary because it's two nuclear powers.
Yes, that is an important fact about
and not
these
that they've two. used it, but
makes escalation scary.
It does make escalation, but if you're into sort of military stuff, the Indians they have French fighter jets, Rafales, and the Pakistanis have J-10s, which are Chinese, and it's kind of interesting for other countries to watch air-to-air combat with these. Like, how would it look like? Because at some point, something might happen with us in Taiwan, in China. How would that look like? I mean, pilot skill is a factor, but it is interesting to watch this from a distance. It is keeping Marco Rubio very busy. He's been on the phone trying to tell both sides to de-escalate.
Yes.
One of his many
his many jobs,
yes.
right?
He's also the archivist, by the way. So the United States wants them to play it down. And obviously we're closer to India, but we're trying to reestablish closer relationships with Pakistan, which we had in the past. China, on the other hand, is like not trying to say, both sides de-escalate. China is like, Pakistan, how can we help? Because they have this weird, they are very close now to Pakistan. China is. Even though China treats Muslims poorly, obviously, and persecutes the Uyghurs, but they have a common enemy, which is India.
Right.
So for China, it's more of a geopolitical enemy, and for Pakistan, it's bigger than that, obviously, because of everything else.
I mean, not to like overgeneralize, but all over the world, Pacific Islands, Pakistan, Middle East, China, in our own university communities, China is very good
Everywhere.
at pulling levers and wooing people to its side.
Yeah.
And if you're not smart about how you are walking those lines, we lose ground to this other option of a superpower that's not great.
And they have money. They will fund infrastructure, Belt and Road. So.
All righty.
Okay.
The Conclave.
Oh, yes.
So this week, thus far, look, this is gonna happen.
Yes.
We're gonna talk about this, and then they're gonna have a pope today, right?
Right.
And we're not gonna have time to update the podcast.
It's about 3 o'clock our time, so 9 p.m. their time.
Okay.
It's the 133 cardinals. It's like, they're all locked in a room. It is the Sistine Chapel. If you're going to be locked in a room, that's a pretty good one to be locked into. I've spent some time there. I did a journalist trip in 2018 and stayed, in fact, at the Casa Santa Marta, which is where Pope Francis stayed. We were on the first floor. He was on the second floor.
Look at you.
And was using we also went to the same dining facility, which is very good food.
Very nice.
So I imagine that, you know what, they're all
important.
Thank you.
I mean, it's Italy. How do you go wrong?
Yes.
Well, technically, it's the Vatican. But you know what I'm saying.
Great coffee, and the Vincentian nuns are basically like the servers there. You get Vatican laundry. That's pretty good too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not as grueling in certain sense, but I mean, they don't know each other, right? And they're voting on this thing. I didn't expect it was going to happen on the first round. I do think it's going to happen by Friday.
Okay.
Is what my sources tell me. It's not going to be somebody of the far left or the far right either. But again, as our listeners are listening, like, I can't believe they're not talking about Pope, Tagle. Pizzaballa or Tagle from the Philippines. That's my sense. If I can just give, in my humble opinion, what the priorities are for the next Pope, may I?
Something about food.
The food is good there. I'm not going to you know what? Don't change anything.
Yeah, okay.
The arugula was very peppery.
Okay.
Clean up with all the sex abuse scandal stuff. Don't move priests around. No more of that. You got to bring them to justice, right? And this happened with the late Cardinal McCarrick in D.C. was horrendous. More of that, okay? Yeah. The second thing is they got to clean up that Vatican bank. That is a mess. And but it's also kind of dangerous because, a pope was murdered. Oh, no, that was Godfather Part 3. Sorry. Immobiliare. Probably accurate, by the way.
Equally Italian.
That was a conspiracy, by the way, because he was going to clean up the bank. So the bank is a mess. They have serious problems there. And then the third thing is not to make Latin Mass illegal. It's not going to lead to a schism. People want to practice it that way. It's been practiced that way for centuries around the world.
It does seem
Dominus Vobiscum.
I shouldn't even get into this.
Please jump in as a non-Catholic. I want you to jump in anyway.
It does seem odd to me that the Catholic Church, which rightly prizes its continuity over these many thousands of years from the establishment of the church, would then be like this extremely traditional thing from many thousands of years ago. We should not be doing that.
Right.
That seems odd to me.
It is. Well, that was Vatican II. I'm going to say this, because George Weigel has written a book on this. My take is it was Vatican II, which meant it was the 60s. And, I mean, things like the sign of peace, we don't need that. We don't need the sign of peace. But it's all very – there's like a version of at Catholic Mass where you do during the Eucharistic liturgy, and there's different prayer forms. Right. The traditional prayer form, they list all the first century martyrs and everything else. It's long, but it's – it's good to contemplate that. The second, I can get this wrong, but the second Eucharistic liturgy was, I think, very Vatican II, because the language is like something. There's an analogy they make, like the morning dewfall. Like nobody talks about the dewfall. That's so 60s. The dewfall. Yes.
It does sound a little bit like Age of Aquarius.
So it totally is. So, but they want to make it more approachable for everybody. Right. But they don't want. They want. You know what? Again, I've said this before.
Also, the numbers are not inapproachable. The numbers are in majesty. That's when you look at liturgical traditions for whichever church. Often, but particularly for young people in the Catholic Church, the preference is for more mystery, more tradition, more vaulted ceilings. It's not for my movie theater church.
I mean, get different
with the dropped ceiling.
Yeah.
Look at the wonder of the dropped fiberglass ceiling above our heads as we worship with an acoustic guitar someone got at a flea market.
It's, you know what, though, because you're all focusing on the important things. None of the,
It's okay. I'm a Protestant, so I'm a Protestant named Mary Catherine, so I feel like I've been passing as a Catholic for years, but I get to be self-deprecating to my own people, just as I can make fun of the South for being a literacy punchline. It's okay, guys.
No. But these are all valid points.
Yeah.
They're all valid points. But they want that. They, there's an element of being attractive by being hard to get, per se. That's a general life of thing. But
you got to work for it.
You got to work for it. What they want is, I'm exaggerating here, but the Indiana Jones at the end of the Last Crusade. Right. You got to work to get that Grail. You got.
My kids occasionally go to mass with one of our very good friends. They'll have sleepovers over, but they're basically like their cousins, and they'll go to mass in the morning. And all I hear about is the majesty of the donuts they have afterwards.
Also, yes.
They're like, Mom, our church doesn't have donuts.
No, but you people, if I may.
Yes.
You do have like these big potluck extravaganzas.
We're pretty good on refreshments, actually. Yeah.
I mean, you could do coffee and donuts, but among Catholics, a lot of it is, okay, got to go home.
We're done.
Yep, off to the diner.
Yeah, the Fellowship Hall potluck, as we discussed at Easter time, is a plus.
Very nice.
Is a plus of our people. Okay.
That's the conclave for you.
I pray for the conclave, and I wish the best for the Catholic Church, as I believe it is a cultural force for good, and one that, like, it always just cracks me up where all these people who have no investment in the Catholic Church and in fact hate most of its beliefs are deeply invested in who the new pope should be, and insist that it be someone who adheres to their values, which are values that hold the Catholic Church in disdain. It's like, well, so maybe you shouldn't be the person with the say in this.
It's all of that, plus they keep on bringing up the climate change. Because Pope Francis was very much into climate change. And, this next pope, if he's not into climate change, what does that mean he's not going to be into climate? Do you mean like we were about to put solar panels on St. Peter's and now we're not?
The hate that will descend from the press on anyone who is like a tick of Francis is going to be insane. And it's not that simple.
They think they're losing followers, but they'd be gaining followers.
They would. Yeah. They would. There's also a lot of annoying press bigotry in the line that African cardinals would be a Trojan horse for right-leaning traditionalist views.
And you like they're being used?
Well, and that's the thing. That what it reveals, as our friend Tim Carney tweeted, is often the press believes that people of color who believe differently from them do not have agency. They're being used.
They're not smart enough to actually have that, to have that specific opinion. So, I mean, they're being like, that's
okay, we have to talk about this, even though it's a little obscene.
Okay.
It has to do with commentary on the conclave. And I explained it to you before we started.
Oh, yeah, okay.
All right. So if you got kids around and you don't want to explain this Urban Dictionary term to them, please check out.
Actually, I'm going to have to look this up myself. Okay.
It's exactly what you think it is.
All right.
Okay. There's an obscene term.
Yeah.
Obscene sexual term that the kids use that became an online trend used in a different fashion.
Yes.
And the online trend was, I'm just going to say it, we can bleep it if we need to, although we probably need to keep it in to make it understandable to people. The online trend was you go on a plane with no electronics and no social media, and you just sit there with your thoughts. Right. And the term for this, as it spread online, was to raw dog the flight. Okay? Yeah, Producer Phil is like, oh dear.
They couldn't say like gut it out or something.
Nope.
Okay. All right.
So that was the term for that. A CBS News correspondent had this to say about the conclave. Are you ready?
One thing to understand is that all of that takes time. You know, we imagine in the conclave that there's all this charged political debate going on. No, inside the Sistine Chapel itself, virtually the entire time that the cardinals are inside is given over to the ritual of the balloting. Each ballot takes about an hour and a half, and with this extraordinary number of electors, it'll probably even take a little longer.
So they sit the whole time? They don't stand up and
Most of them will tell you that while that's going on, they're sitting reading their breviary. That's a book of prayers that clergy have, or praying a rosary, or doing. The one thing we know they're not doing is checking Instagram, because their devices have all been confiscated.
I believe the kids call it raw dogging it if you're going to go through a long period of time with no electronic device.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, they're of a certain age, so they might be used to
No, sir. No, sir. He's very famous now from having done that. That's a very famous clip. Super viral. If you want to go viral, that's one way to do it.
Yeah. There are other ways.
He's technically correct. There is an innocent version of this term, but it's a no on the conclave for that particular term. You could hear the people in the background like,
okay, yeah. Right. And this guy clearly didn't realize it. So.
What else are we talking about? Oh, Biden is on his tour. He's on a tour.
He's on a tour. Why is he on a tour, really?
I think because they want to make money and remain relevant, right?
I think it's the family damage control tour.
Yeah.
That's what I think, right?
So I watched the BBC interview, which is the prelude to The View.
Which is happening as we speak.
Which is happening currently.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the BBC one. He goes in with this interviewer who is as soft as you are going to get.
Yeah.
But this is what they open
It'd be like
with.
me interviewing Bono.
Yeah.
You know, so really, how great are you?
Tell me how amazing you are.
Yeah.
They open. See, he's so soft though that it's unintentionally damning.
Right.
They open with, and I'm sure the Bidens think this is a good look. As happens with every time I watch a Biden interview, I go, "Who thought this was a good idea?"
Right.
That's what I think every time I see him in public. They have him enter this interview on camera. So he's shuffling into the room.
Oh, it's not even like they have him go in there. They don't.
No, they don't have him seated.
Interesting.
They have him shuffle into the room, presumably to show that he's ambulatory. Like, oh, congratulations! And the man perambulates. Look at him. So he walks in. He's sort of shuffly. His hands are by his sides. He's a little slack. You know, the look we've all seen. He walks in. He says hi to the interviewer. The interviewer references. You know this room, don't you? And what he means is this is a significant room to Biden specifically. They're at the DuPont Hotel where he kicked off his first Senate run.
In Delaware.
So this room is significant to Biden, but the way that it's phrased sounds like you're reminding Grandpa where he is. Yeah. He's like, this room is important to you, isn't it, Grandpa?
Oh my gosh.
Tell the people why. And he's like, oh yes, I remember this room.
And the old stuff they can remember well. That's generally the case. You know, if you start losing your memory, it goes backwards from most recent to.
I kind of wonder if that's why they did the interview in this place, right?
To make him feel more.
Make him feel like, oh, I'm spry. I can talk about this. Anyway, I listened to.
And then he went into a Neil Kinnock speech about his father being a miner. Is that what he did? I'm sorry.
I listened to like 20 minutes of this interview, and it's the same old, where he trails off and he's like, oh, well, anyway.
Well, I mean, one of the interesting things about
his classic quote, that should be Biden's quote on every poster, like, well, anyway.
That's the best way to get out of the loop because, I'm stuck in this thing. I don't know how to get, well, anyway, and then you're out. You know, I do this all the time. Like, nevertheless, or whatever.
Point being, it's not good.
Yes.
Wasn't good.
But they asked him about why did you stay where you're supposed to leave?
Shall I play? I'll find that clip for us. Go. By the way, guys, I'm really on top of my game. I forgot my whole ass computer today. So we're just going to look this up with my phone and it's going to be fine. Hold on, Biden, BBC. Here we go. Normally I would have this cued like a real professional.
It's on her.
Okay, here we go.
Did you leave it too late? Should you have withdrawn earlier, given someone else a bigger chance?
I don't think it would have mattered. We left at a time when we had a good candidate. She had fully funded And what happened was, I had become what we had set out to do. No one thought we could do. And become so successful on our agenda, it was hard to say, no, I'm going to stop now. I meant what I said when I started, that I think I'm prepared to hand this to the next generation. It's a transition government. But things moved so quickly that it made it difficult to walk away, and it was a hard decision, but
Regrets, though?
no, I think it was the right decision. I think that it was just a difficult decision.
But you shouldn't have taken it earlier.
Well, I don't think so. I mean, I don't know how that would have made much difference.
Anyway, I played the whole painful thing for you, so you could see that's one of the more coherent moments.
When he says it's the right decision, you mean the right decision to stay as long as he did, or the right decision to finally leave? Which that's
I think he's saying that the way he did it is perfect.
was the perfect way, much like the Afghanistan withdrawal was a perfect one, and that's why nobody got fired.
An extraordinary success.
Yeah.
The vibrancy.
Yeah, no, exciting.
It's just amazing
the energy,
stuff.
as Karine Jean-Pierre and others had said, just running circles around them. They are
circles.
exhausted trying to keep up with him.
Really? You should get checked for that then.
So he. Okay.
Do you have some hormonal imbalances? What's happening?
The explanation that he has, right, for why did he stay along? Wasn't he supposed to be the bridge to the next generation? And he says we were, but we were getting, so much done, and it happened so fast. And I don't know if you know this, Mary Catherine. There's what he's trying to say. There's this phrase that some people use. It's called "time flies." That's it. That was it. It just, wow, that was a fast 4 years. I'm not ready yet. I thought I was, but here we are.
It's fast when you're asleep for most of it, and everyone else is doing your job for you.
You work from 10 to 4.
Yeah. We do have a bit from The View, just breaking, so we might as well play one of those clips,
this must be something.
Let's do it.
The projects, the benefits. How do you lead the world without having the best infrastructure in the world? How do you lead the world without having the best healthcare in the world? How do you lead the world without having the best education system in the world? How do you lead the world when you don't have that done?
So it's going well.
Humana. He was going to get as much help as possible from this view, and even when they do try to help, we know what happened during the campaign, right? Like you mentioned that on
when I said they were scheduling with the View, I was like, she already, Sonny already laid the career-ending sack on Kamala. Like you might as well get some more stickers for the helmet. Take out Joe as well.
Are they looking at him? Do you think when they have him on the View, what they're trying to sell here is, we could have had this man for president instead of the monster that is currently president.
I guess, but
or are they just like, he did the most selfless thing, and we could have had Kamala, and tell us what's going on.
Yeah, they definitely got some kind of guarantee that the View's going to be nice to them when they go in there.
Oh.
It's not going to be.
No.
But I think those ladies are also mad at him because he didn't quit earlier, because he should have quit earlier. Yeah. So there's that part of it. So we'll have to see if there's anything a little.
I wonder if they're going to give him a hard time about that,
chippy.
or just push it a little bit.
But also, he can't defend himself.
Yeah.
So even I would ask him a tough question, but I'd feel bad about it. I'd be like, "Hey, old man, But
as straightforward as possible.
Yeah.
You don't have to have any sort of, in contempt or anything. Just be like, so explain this, whatever, and then say how he does. Why?
He continues to contend that he would have beat
Trump.
Yeah. Even though, look, Kamala
if you stayed in, would you have won?
Kamala was not a good candidate, but she, I do think, gave them a better chance than he had.
Yeah, I mean, she obviously had more energy, and she's more
freshness,
with it.
There was a little bit of energy. There was you could at least fake the brat summer, even if it wasn't organic. Right. You couldn't do that with him, with Dark Brandon.
They had all the help of the media behind her, celebrities, rock stars, you name it, athletes, everybody, across the board. And people were like, they're not buying it anyway.
No. Now, Jill's there too.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's there too.
To squeeze his hand when he's saying the wrong thing.
Just like when she ran the cabinet meeting. The other thing is, I think why they're doing this, Mary Catherine, we talked about this before the show, is not only are they anticipating, the Jake Tapper book and another book, 2024, that's going to come out, and things that are just trickling out from those books, but also the possibility that Trump's Justice Department releases the Hur tapes, right?
Yes,
Robert Hur, the audio tapes from that deposition.
Which they should. I saw some journalists poo-pooing this, like,
Really?
haha, like, who cares? Because he's not running again. I care.
Yeah.
I care to know exactly how incapacitated this man was.
Yeah.
And how you guys smeared Robert Hur.
Yeah. Oh.
In the service of this
They
incapacitated
tried to grill
man.
him in Congress.
Well, and they all said he was lying, or that this was just mean-spirited right-wingism to say that the man couldn't remember things. When you hear the tape, I'm quite certain we will find out it was not a smear.
Oh, they were so upset because he said it's not worth charging him because he was telling the truth.
Well, and I think if you look at the Jill and Joe sit down with The View, this is the circling of the wagons of the Democratic Party and the media, which is the same group.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You
A lot of
yourself.
people in the media are going to want to circle the wagons and say, like, no, we didn't get it wrong. Just like Chuck Todd was saying, this virtue signaling about how we got it wrong.
It's a right-wing talking point.
The View ladies are on the side of we got nothing wrong.
Right.
As they always are.
Right.
By the way, in answer to your question about what pitch they're making, Jill Biden explicitly says, if you look at things today, give me Joe Biden anytime.
Well,
no,
there you go.
I pass. Pass on that.
By the way, I do, in the BBC interview, the interviewer says something to the effect of, really, besides the softball questions about how terrible Trump is.
Right.
At one point he says, I can feel your passion.
God. Hard-hitting stuff. Is there anything else I want to say about this before we're done?
Well, if you want to talk about Colombia quickly.
Look, oh, yeah. Last thing about Biden. He sat on the beach the entire presidency. Please let the man go sit on the beach. Yeah. We're done. No one thinks you're smart or a leader or interesting. We're done.
Is he bound because he is a former senator from Delaware that it has to be a Delaware beach?
I think so.
No knock. That's just not my scene.
By the way, he has, in the past, 5 years, all these companies have moved out of Delaware because of changes in, remember, it used to be the place where you would go to form your corporation.
Sure, that's right.
And people have skedaddled from there.
Yeah,
anyway,
big companies.
He should go sit on the beach. Go sit on the beach. Anyway, Colombia, yes, we almost forgot. The Hamas Girl Summer is happening where everybody's breaking into the libraries again.
Yeah. Storming the barricades.
So yesterday at Columbia, the library was overtaken by pro-Palestinian protesters who, on video, are shown assaulting the security guards. On video are shown spray painting and putting marker on the, no doubt, historic bookshelves of this
the reading room
library.
At the Butler Library.
This gorgeous library. And, at the risk of sounding like a real dork, okay, if I paid all that money to go to Columbia,
a lot of money.
It had a beautiful reading room and library, and I, during finals week, could not use that facility for studying, that's right. Maybe I would do that. Maybe I would. I don't know. I went to the University of Georgia. I don't know much about it. But
she downplays her smarts, but I'm telling you.
But maybe I'd want to study if I went to Columbia, and you can't because the free speech rights of the people who are vandalizing and occupying and hurting people, they trump your need to study if you're just like a regular kid.
That's right.
Nah, man, I'd be so ticked.
It also is so ridiculous because, they want to be portrayed as, these fearless radicals speaking truth to power. And what happens is they put the mask on and they get to pretend to be terrorists and do these things, including the vandalism. And finally, even for the acting president now, Claire Shipman of Columbia University, she had to put her foot down. She called in the NYPD, and they were not letting any of those people out until they showed ID.
I did enjoy this very much. Yeah. It was like they decided to take the library. Yeah. We're occupying the library. We are freedom fighters. That's what we're doing. We're cool. We're tough. They go in there with their masks on. They overtake the library. And then security's like, okay, you're in there. Now you got to show your ID to get out.
Yeah.
None
which
shall
is,
pass.
Can I just say, if you've ever seen the movie Bronx Tale, or just look it up on YouTube, there's a great scene where these bikers come into the nice little Italian bar in the city, run by Chaz Palminteri and his crew, and they make a mess of things because they asked him to leave. They didn't want to leave, and finally Chaz Palminteri goes to the door, locks it from the inside, and he turns to them and he famously says, "Now you just can't leave." If only.
You know?
Yeah.
I would not doubt that a couple of those NYPD guys look and sound a little bit like Chaz Palminteri.
Now you just can't leave.
Now you just can't leave.
But it's just like, show us, and I mean, it's the same thing with the other students who were charged with, illegally, storming into a building.
Right.
And like 3 of the 5 of them were Asian, what I mean? There are these pre-med students.
Yeah.
And as a professor friend of mine recently told me, they don't go in there with that mindset. They get brainwashed by faculty and then these outside organizers. So the ones who are being aggressive, I'd like to know, for example, are they actually Columbia students doing that?
Well, I
or
mean,
are
we'll
they
find out.
Yeah.
And the thing is, University of Washington experienced this as well this week, where an engineering building was protested. I think it's because the engineering building was partly built with Boeing funds, and Boeing funds.
Well, this is at
weapons
Washington.
that go
right?
to
This is-
Israel. This is
yeah.
University of Washington.
Yeah.
But there was some
$1 million
reports
in
saying that they did $1 million of damage. And it's like, okay, that's not free speech anymore. It's very clear. There's another incident where they're having some concert in New York City, and Eric Adams pushed back on one of the pro-Palestinian loudmouthed performers there. And on that front, I'm like, yeah, that is free speech. Like, just because this person has obnoxious views doesn't mean they can't be at this summer concert in New York, or that the mayor should be dictating that, right? Occupying buildings and hurting people, not free speech.
No.
But if you continue to let these people go without expulsion, prosecution, and in cases where they are legal residents or students with visas, deportation.
Yeah.
This will continue to happen. And if you are doing these crimes on camera, you're not being deported for your views. You're being deported because you did the crimes.
Right. And this is also why they want to wear the mask, because they don't want to be deported.
Well, and that's why they don't want to show the ID. Right? They're like, oh no, I don't want to do that. Ugh. This goes back to, was it Columbia, where the girl was like, and they wouldn't even bring us food.
Yeah, that's right. No, they
while we were occupying the building.
Right. They're going on the quote unquote hunger strike.
Yeah.
Great.
Like, y'all don't
Good
have
luck
a
with
right
that.
to late night
You
tacos
could cross
supplied
over.
by the security guards. that you hold
I love the
hostage.
students who are eating in front of them, by the way. That part I really loved.
Anyway, these people are just such melodramatic losers. Like, let the people who might actually make something of themselves study for their finals.
It's about time they put their foot down.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. I bet all these kids are going to get arraigned and then let go, right? That's what happens.
Yeah, or you got a lousy judge who lets them go.
I don't know.
Not us. Oh,
it will keep happening if they don't crack down on it. Right. Is that
Gotta
it?
wrap it up.
We're done.
That's it.
We're done.
I gotta take a Tums. That wraps up this episode of Getting Hammered. Remember, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at Victorina Mattis.
I'm at MK Hammer on X, at MK Hammer Time on Instagram. You can follow the show at Getting Hammered Podcast on YouTube and Instagram. Thanks for getting hammered responsibly. This has been a Nebulous Media Podcast. All right. Breaking. This is like one of those situations where you have to wait for the stinger. We are a Marvel
this
movie.
is coming at the end of the show. You thought it was over. Aren't you glad you stuck around?
Just minutes ago, white smoke from the smokestack at the Vatican. There, from the Sistine Chapel. There is a new pope whose name we do not know yet.
No.
We will find it out by the time you guys listen to this. But we wanted to make sure
And I want to point out, and I mentioned this on the Hugh Hewitt show earlier this week, and I said it on this episode, that we will know by Friday. I mean that by the time you're listening to it, it's Friday, you'll know who the Pope is what I meant.
That's what I meant.
Man,
well, we did predict.
Hope it's Cardinal
We did
Sarah,
predict correctly that during the course of our show taping, they would pick a pope so that we would be behind the news.
Yes.
So there you go. Not so behind. Tomorrow you'll know who it is. By then, when you listen to this, you're welcome. Thanks for listening to our news program.